Fruitfulness is one of the great themes of Scripture. The very first command of the Bible is a command to be fruitful and to multiply. This is a call that extends beyond procreation to spiritual impact and flourishing. Psalm 1 likens the blessed person to a tree planted by water that yields its fruit in its season. In John chapter 15, Jesus likens himself to the vine and his followers as the branches. In John chapter 15, verse 8, Jesus says, "By this is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples." Paul famously in Galatians talks about the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. In Romans 1, Paul likens fruit to success in evangelism. Yet people so often have a faith that is mere words, busyness, or even self-reliance. Their lives are barren and distracted. They aren't seeing the supernatural at work, and they have no disciples to point to. We want you to bear lasting fruit by living a vibrant spiritual life, having victory over sin, living out a fulfilling vocation that makes an impact, and making disciples that you can point to as evidence of the power of God in your life. Fruitfulness should be a sign of a thriving relationship with God. The modern educational system, however, tends towards a set of values that will promote busyness and superficial success. But there is another way. Whether you might want to overcome sin, experience God, or make disciples of the nations, we want to equip you to live a joyful, fruit-bearing life in community for God's glory. How? Let's first consider some of the problems that our society is facing. On this chart here is showing deaths from drug overdose. They've approximately quintupled since 1999. We live in a world that medicates its grief through drugs rather than being able to handle these with the power of God. There's the ongoing tragedy of war, which we are still in right now. These are two photographs of the Russian invasion and missile launches into Ukraine. And tens of thousands of people have perished in this war. And sadly, this is perpetrated by people who call themselves Christians. It's supposed to be the case that the cardinal sign of the fruit of God in our life is loving others, not harming others. Trafficking in the U.S. is growing. This chart here shows FBI data and how many more people are being trafficked over time. This is business run amok, business that takes advantage of people rather than honors them as image bearers of God. This headline is from the Barna Group. You can see the headline says that over half of practicing Christians admit they use pornography. Going a little bit deeper into this topic, this is from a great book called The Freedom Fight by Ted Scheimer. And he writes that the Freedom Fight recently conducted a survey of over 750 Christian college men from over 30 different campuses across the country. Each of the men we surveyed was involved in a campus ministry, and each considered their faith to be a vital element in their lives. Many of them were leaders in their ministries. What we found was alarming. 89% of the growing Christian men we surveyed watch porn at least occasionally. More than 6 in 10 view it at least weekly. More than half of these practicing Christian men say they are addicted to pornography. Pornography and these kinds of hidden sins will destroy one's ability to bear fruit. Now, in the face of these kinds of problems, addiction, war, division, sexual brokenness, the church is actually on the decline in the West. On the left is shown a graph from the Pew Research Group, and it just shows how many people self-identify as Christian compared to other religions. And you can see the percent people who self-identify as Christian is on a steady decline, down from 78% in 2007 to the low 60s today, 63%. Where are those people turning? You can see they're turning to no religion. No religion has almost doubled in that same time period. On the right is shown a chart from Gallup. And in this chart, it just asks the question, are you a member of a religious organization, a church, a synagogue, or a mosque? And you can see for decades, this held in the 70s. 75% or so people said, yeah, I am. But you can see roughly at around the year 2000, which was basically the time the internet really took off, we see that church membership began this decline, and now it is below 50% for the first time in history. So facing all these challenges, we have the church in decline. However, there was once a time when the church was growing, when it was vibrant in the midst of paganism. The book that I'm showing on this slide is called The Rise of Christianity by Rodney Stark, an excellent book that asks the question, how did this tiny group of people that started in the first century grow so rapidly and become roughly half of the Roman Empire by the mid-4th century? Stark estimates that the growth of the Christians were somewhere around 40% per decade. And on the right-hand side, I'm showing a table from his book where it's a very rough estimate of what the population of Christians would have been. So around 1,000 people in the year 40. And you can see what a tiny percentage of the population that was. But growing over time, that became approximately 30 million, or about half of the Roman Empire by the year 350. Incredible growth, inspiring growth. This was the group of people that turned the world upside down with this message and devotion to Jesus. What made the difference between then, when the church was growing, and now, when the church is declining? There's three basic reasons. First, from scholar evangelists, people like Justin Martyr, Tertullian, Origen, who were some of the preeminent thinkers of their day, all the way to new disciples, the church internalized deep knowledge of the scriptures. They loved the word. They talked about the word. They bled the word. This was deep inside of them. Number two, in a two-kingdom context, Christians embraced the disciplines and demanding teachings of the Bible. This entailed sacrifice and suffering. And three, the early church lived as communities in cities, in the major cities of the Roman Empire, sharing the faith and making disciples. This pattern we refer to as learn, do, teach. Learn, do, teach. And this threefold pattern of renewal is rooted in the scriptures. This was not something that just began in the early church. If we go back to the book of Ezra, in Ezra chapter 7, verses 9 and 10, it says, "The good hand of his God was on him. For Ezra had dedicated himself to studying the law of the Lord, to doing it, and to teaching its statutes and judgments in Israel." You can see here that learn, do, teach pattern again. This pattern is also how Jesus trained his disciples. He taught them. He wanted them to live it out as they traveled together. And then he sent them out to teach on campaigns within Israel, and then in the Great Commission, he sent them out into the nations. This basic pattern, this threefold pattern, is the way to restore Christianity back to faithfulness and to growth. We invite you to put this threefold pattern into practice so that you also can bear fruit. We expand on these words, learn, do, teach, in the following way. Learn, we refer to with the phrase academic excellence, do by the phrase relational discipleship, and teach with the phrase light the world. I'm going to walk through each of these three in the remainder of my talk. Let's start with learn. Let's start with the scriptures. We should all start with the scriptures. That ought to be the foundation of our learning. So let me just ask you a question here. I'm speaking to you from a classroom at Sattler College, and here at Sattler, during their first semester of freshman year, they have a course where they take a diagnostic quiz that has questions somewhat like this. Describe the main message of the book of Amos. What is the relationship between Haggai and Ezra? What happened in Ephesus versus Philippi versus Galatia that made the letters so different? Now, most people who take this diagnostic will say things like, I recognize all those names, but I don't really know how to answer these questions. They don't have a well-developed framework that builds out the whole storyline of Scripture with the key events and people on it. Most people have a kind of scattered Sunday school knowledge of various Bible stories like David and Goliath, but don't really have an integrated, comprehensive understanding of the Scriptures that can be the story that propels their life. We emphasize right at the get-go to understand and to internalize deeply the Scriptures. And so we invite you to build your life on the foundation of the Word of God. In addition, we invite you to experience the beauty and the depth of the biblical languages. Sattler College is the only college in America where all students are required to learn Biblical Greek and Hebrew. We have a unique pedagogical approach that uses a primarily communicative method to help you internalize the languages. At the conclusion of the first year, students go to Greece and visit 4 cities, Athens, Corinth, Thessalonica, and Philippi, to practice their Greek on location and experience the historical locations firsthand. We want you to become grounded in the historic faith, to have focused study and to read the primary sources so that you can discover what has changed in Christianity over the centuries, so that you can help recover and practice the faith that, as Jude says, was once for all delivered to the saints. These are the core courses that you will take at Sattler. The fundamental text of Christianity, which builds out those structures and that framework. Statistics and data science, so you can be a critical thinker and evaluate data, be able to read the literature, be a discerning human being. Principles of biology, to understand the way that our bodies function and the way that God made the world. Christian doctrines. Evangelism, which is a course that is primarily based on going out and doing evangelism. Academic writing and oral communication. We want you to be excellent in your public speaking and in your writing. Biblical Greek, Biblical Hebrew, of course. And then an excellent sequence which studies the history, philosophy, literature, and art of the ancient world, the medieval and Renaissance Europe, and then the modern world. This is a powerful sequence that does a lot of primary source readings and really engages deeply with some of the most formative texts in our world. And then finally, in senior year, global poverty and world change. We have 5 classic majors here at Sattler College: biblical and religious studies, business, computer science, history, and human biology. In addition, for those who are interested, we have a partnership with Indiana Wesleyan where you would actually get 2 bachelor's degrees, one from Sattler with one of the majors that I just showed you, and then a second bachelor's degree in either early childhood education or social work. For those who, for different life reasons, may not be able to be here for 4 years, maybe they're at the stage of having a family or they're already a student somewhere else, we have a program which is a 1-year certificate. This is great for people who want to do a gap year or who are already working or have a family and can take out 9 months to do either a certificate in biblical and religious studies or in liberal arts. There are a number of great faculty that we have here at Sattler. These are 2 of the faculty that you will have. On the left is Hans Lehmann. He did his undergrad at Princeton, his JD from Yale Law School, and his PhD from Yale in history. I'm shown on the right. I did my undergrad from Caltech, my master's from MIT, and then I did an MD PhD program from Harvard Medical School. My PhD is in chemistry. I love to teach and I love to equip. Our student-faculty ratio is extraordinary. It is approximately 7-to-1. Our classes are small and faculty will get to know you very well. They will know your name. They will know you, your strengths, your weaknesses. You will be in the homes of some faculty members and be known much more deeply than nearly any other school in the country. I went to good schools, and the vast majority of the teachers that I had didn't know my name. I never got to go to the homes of any of the faculty that I had. But here at Sattler, it's quite different. You will be known by the faculty from day one, and this level of investment is one of the secret weapons that Sattler has. This is just an example of this. Jesse Schumann, who teaches Hebrew here, he opens his homes on most Saturdays for a brunch for students to come and have a time of fellowship and encouragement. I sometimes will have people over to my home for dinner, or sometimes we'll make bubble tea together. It's very special. This is even more poignant when you think about what it's like at the academic level. I want to talk about now those who are interested in medical school. Being a physician myself, this is something that I'm quite passionate about. Sattler has the highest median MCAT score of any college in the country. If you don't know what the MCAT is, it's the medical school admissions test. It's a very demanding test that is 6 hours and 15 minutes of content, 7.5 hours including breaks. Our median MCAT score is 521, which is in the 98th percentile of all those who take the MCAT. Why do we have this? Well, one of the things that we do early on is have a lot of emphasis on interaction and problem solving. I teach freshman biology, and for about half of the class period, students are solving problems, and I walk around the room and I literally look over your shoulder and I check to see how you're solving these problems. I want you to solve them as well or better than I do. And you will get a lot of that kind of investment from myself and other faculty members that will propel you much higher in that interactive environment. Publishing in the sciences is also one of the great strengths here at Sattler. These are two publications from some of our former students. On the left is a publication from an individual. His name is Hans Hertzler. You can see here he's the fourth author on this paper. But I want you to notice what his affiliation is listed as. It's listed as being with the Brigham and Women's Hospital at Harvard Medical School. Many, if not most, of our bio students, they engage in different labs right here in Boston that are affiliated with Harvard Medical School, and they get to work with some of the best and brightest people in the top labs in the country and publish in those labs. On the right is another publication from another former student, Bryant Miller, and you can see his affiliation is described as the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute at Harvard Medical School. This is very powerful for us, where we really want you to be connected to some of the leading academic labs in the world. We have excellent preparation for medicine. These are some of the medical schools that our students have gained admission to: Yale Medical School, Johns Hopkins, Washington University in St. Louis, and the University of Chicago. And I'll add that we've gotten people into MD, PhD programs in 3 out of these 4 programs as well. So this is a very strong place for those who are interested in medicine. I want to conclude the section on Learn by taking us to a quote from a speech that was given by an individual. His name is Charles Malik. This speech is called The 2 Tasks, and he says this: responsible Christians face 2 tasks, that of saving the soul and that of saving the mind. The mind is desperately disordered today. I am pleading that a tiny fraction of Christian care be extended to the mind too. If it is the will of the Holy Spirit that we attend to the soul, certainly it is not His will that we neglect the mind. No civilization can endure with its mind being as confused and disordered as ours is today. Save the university and you saved Western civilization and therewith the world. Let's go on to do next. We want you to grow holistically in your faith in an inside-out manner to experience the abundant life in Christ. This goes beyond learning into practice. I like to refer to this as obedience-based discipleship. And I love this quote that says, "An ounce of obedience is better than a ton of learning." So what do we do here? We use a metaphor from the Sermon on the Mount that I think captures what discipleship should be. To think about discipleship, imagine a fountain here that has these concentric bowls of water. And as the first bowl is filled, that overflows to the second, which overflows to the third and to the fourth. That upper bowl, we would say, is your own personal life with God, your own victory over sin, your own devotional time with the Lord, with prayer, with knowledge of the Word, with just experiencing His joy and His love. It ought to be the case that this is full, and then that overflow spills out to caring for your family, caring for people in the church. And then that overflow then goes out to be what is reaching out to the lost and sharing the love of God with those outside of the church. It's very important that one doesn't skip levels. It's very tempting to skip levels and to have a hollow interior and to have missed those upper levels. This is what Jesus stresses again and again in the Sermon on the Mount, where He chides people and says, oh, well, they want this external praise, but what's going on in their interior life, in their prayer closets, and their fasting? In addition, I want you to clearly understand this iron law of discipleship. This is such an important principle. Jesus says, every student, when he is fully trained, will be like his teacher. That's Luke 6:40. I'm going to read you a quote from John Dickerson, who says, Lifeway research found that 70% of Christian church attendees from the millennial generation quit attending church by age 23. Barna estimates that from every 5 young evangelicals, 4 will disengage from the church by age 29. So it's that college age, that late teenage to early 20s, where we have tremendous attrition and loss of young people from the church. This should actually be expected. This should be predicted based on what Jesus says in Luke 6:40, which I'm calling the iron law of Christian discipleship. If you put a young person in a worldly environment being taught by professors who have different values, who don't agree with the biblical worldview, they're going to be shaped and become more and more like them. And so it is almost a foregone conclusion, and one of the main reasons why we have that attrition that I showed you early on. Instead, we should be using the iron law of discipleship to strengthen Christianity, not weaken it. So how do we do relational discipleship here? We do it at the heart through what are called journey groups. These are small, same-gender groups of 3 to 4 people that meet once a week, and they come together and they share the highs, the lows, they confess, they encourage, they build up. It's a wonderful experience that students get to go through over their years here. And then every day we have something called tea time. There's no classes that meet from 10 to 10:30, and we come together as a campus and we sing hymns together. And then on 3 of those days, a student or a staff will get up and share a pearl, just a 3 to 5 minute encouragement. There's lots of fellowship, and it's a beautiful experience that is a great time of centering on God. We also emphasize mentorship here. That starts with faculty teaching in the classroom. We want our faculty members to be great mentors. We have student mentors who live in the dorms. We have full-time staff. We have a full-time male and a full-time female who lead student life. And then we want students to meet with their own mentor, a self-chosen mentor, one-on-one every month. And we encourage, if possible, that be someone from their home communities so they stay connected with wherever they're from. Well, how has our relational discipleship performed? This bar chart is showing across a number of categories how students are doing. The blue means they're showing improvement compared to when they started. Gold is no change, and then gray is worsened. And you can see how students have done with respect to sharing their faith, their purity, time in personal devotions, fasting, time with God, prayer. And this is based on 168 anonymous student responses from 2023 to 2026. This is something that we take very seriously to really understand how we're doing. To give just some of a face to this is from one of our former students, Seth, who says, Sattler is a great place for those who are seeking to strengthen their faith and lay a foundation for a lifetime of service to God's kingdom. Here I learned the devotional habits that continue to propel me forward in my relationship with God. He's now doing his graduate studies in linguistics. Another former student, Emily, class of 2024, she says, Sattler is a close-knit community with exceptional classes, professors, and Christian discipleship for all students. Let's go to our final element in this threefold pattern of learn, do, teach. And I told you there's a phrase attached to teach, which is light the world. Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount that we're supposed to be the light of the world. And so we use teach in the broader sense of sharing and discipling, as well as classroom teaching. Taking what students have learned and what they've done, they've put that into action. This is how Sattler students and graduates share it with others. This is an important step in fruit bearing, both for the recipient and the giver. There's a great quote that I heard once from an organization that says, you can't keep it if you don't give it away. It's a beautiful paradox there, that in teaching, yes, you are blessing someone else, but it's also something that you are strengthening in. This begins with our location. So we are right in the heart of downtown Boston. I hope you can come and see our campus. We emphasize being in cities because cities are where the church has historically grown. From the book of Acts to the early church, the apostles and church leaders focused on winning the cities of the world. Paul loved especially to go to capitals, to big cities, places like Corinth, Thessalonica, Ephesus, Rome. The book of Acts is really about how the apostles made beelines towards these places and sought to win them for the Lord. Did you know what the etymology is of the words pagan and heathen? You can look it up, but the word pagan comes from the Latin word paganus, which means country dweller. Basically, the Christians were so enriched, they were so plentiful in the cities. In shorthand, they would refer to the people who lived outside the cities as the non-Christians, as the paganuses, the pagans. And so that's why the word pagan today means non-Christian, because historically they were the ones who lived outside the cities where the Christians were in the cities. Heathen. Heathen means people of the heath, where there's shrubbery and it's more rural and desolate. Whereas, again, the Christians were in the cities. So these are important trends for us to understand, because today it's flipped. Today, many Christians have fled the cities and instead really given them over to those of different persuasions. Boston is one of the premier cities in America for its history. Really, America was really born here, and its opportunity for cross-cultural evangelism. Students live right near the Charles River that's shown in the picture up on the right, and they walk from the dorm skirting the Boston Commons, which is the oldest public park in America, beautiful park, right to our campus, which is on the other side of the Boston Commons. It's a great experience that we hope you can come and see for yourself. Part of teaching involves these capstone projects, where seniors do a capstone project in their final year that integrates the work of previous years and helps launch graduates out. Let me share some examples of what capstones look like. This is a former student, Christy Mass. She's actually now on staff with us. And her passion is for seeing women transformed by studying the Word. And she, for her capstone, put together a book that became eventually published by a different organization called Daughters of Promise. The book is called Kingdom of Priests. You can see a picture of it in the middle. The graphic design is absolutely gorgeous in this book. And it is a great example of using biblical theology to put the storyline of the Word in women's hearts so that they can live out the life of Jesus to the glory of God. This is another student, Jesse Weiler, who was a business major here. And for his capstone, he engaged with a business that had a single location in Pennsylvania. And when he engaged with the business, he learned there was an opportunity. So what he did was he, for his capstone, did market research and developed a business plan to ask and answer the question, can this business expand and open a branch right here in Boston? His capstone concluded that it was feasible to do that. And so after graduation, he launched this branch. In their first full year of operation, they did more than $500,000 in sales. A great example of success in being launched from a capstone into a vocation. Another former student, June Whitmer, was a computer science major. And she did something that I'm especially proud of. She wrote an app to serve the global poor. This app is being used today by an organization known as Christian Aid Ministries that has an organization inside of it called SALT. SALT is based on savings groups that are serving the poorest of the poor, building the right worldview and disciplines in order to lift people out of poverty and introduce them to biblical principles. Almost 20% of Sattler students end up being classroom teachers. 18.5% have taken teaching roles in the classroom since graduation, and we love this. We love the concept of students taking what they've learned, what they've done, and bringing it to the next generation. This is a picture here of a former student, Seth Howell, who's now teaching at a school in Brooklyn, New York. Another aspect of teaching are what we call freedom groups. Freedom groups are groups that help liberate people from the bondage of pornography. Sattler students have led a number of freedom groups, both internally on campus and externally. I saw one freedom group where a Sattler student was leading some Harvard students, and one Harvard student in particular experienced a breakthrough after years of addiction and was completely set free. Again, I just love this. I love Sattler students taking what they've learned and bringing it as a blessing to the world. We have a number of students who have gone abroad during their time at Sattler. A group of students went abroad to Africa, to the country of Uganda, and there they helped with local discipleship and also with a pro-life organization that operates in Kampala. This was a special summer. I got to go and be a part of this as well. Another student here, her name is Joy. She's since graduated, but she did summer research at a hospital in Pakistan on how to improve the survival and health outcomes of preterm infants. And she's now in her third year of medical school. Another alumnus, Austin, went to Ukraine. He took a gap year while at Sattler, went to Ukraine, learned Russian, didn't know any Russian at first, but went and learned Russian, and served mobile clinics on the front line of the invasion, helping very vulnerable patients and residents there. And then did his capstone on mental health, focusing on PTSD. And of course, you can understand why that's so relevant given the plight of people in Ukraine. And he is going to medical school in 2026. Another Sattler alumnus, I'm going to call him a fictitious name, Evan, for security reasons. He shared the gospel and baptized 2 people from Asia while he was a student at Sattler. And a part of fruit bearing is evangelism, baptism, and discipleship. So many people have not done this. College ought to be the time when you are the most fruitful in this. So I'm especially glad when students do this, and it's something we encourage and emphasize here. After graduation, after investing here, baptizing people, discipling people, he has since moved to Asia, where he started a successful business as mission enterprise and is making disciples abroad. The people that he had discipled here had no Christian background, and he's now working with people in Asia who similarly don't have any Christian background. Very exciting to see the gospel brought to the nations. And then there is service domestically. This is a picture of David Anderson. He transferred from William and Mary, which is a college in Virginia, to Sattler, completed his bachelor's degree here. He earned his master's degree from Gordon Conwell and is now teaching at Sattler while concurrently pursuing his doctorate in historic theology. We have an exciting cost model here. We call it entrustment. We don't charge tuition here. This makes us very unique. Instead, we ask that students work about 3 hours per week for the college. And then after graduating, when they're one day earning money, we trust that they will give back financially to support the next generation of students. This would be on a donation basis as people are able. So what that means, because we don't charge tuition, is that the costs that you would be responsible for would be room and board, books, and incidental living expenses. We do have scholarships, especially to cover housing. These are some of the scholarships that we have. One program is for the Judson Scholar, and this is a year of funded housing for students who are planning to do foreign missions. There's another program for those who would be a presidential fellow. And this is 2 to 4 years of funded housing for students who are in the 95th percentile or higher academically on the SAT, ACT, or CLT. We have a study abroad program. We call it the Global Honors Program in Jerusalem, where students can study for a semester abroad in Jerusalem to deepen one's Hebrew and knowledge of biblical locations in Israel. We have a global honors program for Greece to spend a summer in Greece and to deepen one's Greek and knowledge of early church sites. You might consider applying to be a Carmichael Fellow if you are a woman committed to doing evangelism and missions. We have a year of funded housing available. We have the Ida Scudder Award. This is $5,000 for medical missions or a service trip for women pursuing vocations in healthcare. And then we love people who take a gap year and want to come to Sattler. This program is called the Blau Rock Fellowship, and what this would entail is having funded housing for the entire year of the gap year to do coursework and then to do research in that year. So you can go to this URL, sattler.edu/admissions/cost to learn more. In conclusion, we want you to live a fruitful Christian life. We want it to be that inside-out life that Jesus wants us to have, that starts with that dynamic, vibrant, authentic, interior spiritual life that flows out to our families, to our neighbors, and to the world. So what are the next steps of learn, do, and teach? We invite you to meet with an admissions counselor for personalized guidance. We'd love to have you come visit our beautiful campus right in downtown Boston to see it for yourself, see our dorms. We invite you to come to Sattler in July of 2026 for 3 days to learn early American history on location in Boston, where you actually can go to the sites and see for yourself and experience what it would be like to be in those places. It comes alive when you can go and see it for yourself. And then, of course, we'd love for you to apply for our 1-year certificate program or our 4-year bachelor's degree. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us at info@sattler.edu, or you can use the QR code on the screen with your mobile phones to contact us, and we'd love to stay in touch and to meet you. God bless you all, and we look forward to equipping you to live a fruitful life for God's glory.